My name is Lynn Jimenez. I'm the founder of Connect Flow Grow. I am a licensed clinical social worker. My specialty has become stress response system activation, which includes daily stress, anxiety-like responses, depression-like responses, and trauma responses. And as a former educator, I'm really excited to bring all this knowledge to teachers in the classroom.
Hi, my name is Yvette Magaña, and I am currently an educator, former teacher, and I am passionate about supporting teachers in finding ways, creative ways to help students cope and adjust to the classroom environment so that they can learn and maximize their education.
So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the struggles and why this is important.
Yeah, I think this year, especially with students returning back to school physically from the pandemic, it's been really challenging for a lot of our educators to make adjustments to their teaching practices, often practices they've been using for years and years that have always worked, to meet some of these new demanding challenges that their students are facing.
Yeah, so it's such a unique environment. Unfortunately, we haven't been here before. Unfortunately, we haven't been here before, but it really is an opportunity to learn new skills that benefit all students, and really just set a foundation that will continue to grow with you. And so I think one of the things that both of us are really good at is getting really creative. We'll give you a lot of context of why we're asking you to do what we're asking you to do, or what we're suggesting you might want to try, but not be super prescriptive in that we're going to tell you just do these 3 things, because that isn't going to take you very far. But if we can give you sort of the big picture, then you'll be able to adapt the practices in a way that is more authentic to your classroom environment. And that is much more important, because if we just tell you what to do, we're going to cause you stress, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah, and we're going to start with a foundational understanding of the stress response system and how some of the challenges and the stressors we've all experienced over the last couple of years have really activated our stress response systems, and what that might look like in your classroom when your students walk through that door, how to identify it, how to find strategies and interventions that you can use on a daily basis that will work for all of your students and probably even for yourself.
Yeah, which is super important, because you want to make sure that you are well regulated, so that way you can help regulate your students. And because if your stress level's up, one, your job is not going to be fun, and I'm sure you came into teaching because you are passionate about it and you have this desire to help students learn and thrive. And if that goes away, that light becomes dim, then you're just kind of trudging through the day, and we don't want that for you. We want you to feel like you are equipped to navigate your own stress, navigate your students' stress. And so part of it is just understanding a little bit of the physiology, because if you, again, have that framework, that foundation, then you can figure out practices that work. How do you work with a fight or flight response rather than work against a fight or flight response? How do you engage the emotional part of a student's brain rather than working up against it when they've had relational trauma? And so we'll give you that context, but also give you some specific strategies. We're not just going to give you a bunch of information and leave you hanging.
Yeah, and like we mentioned earlier, hopefully a lot of these strategies are strategies that are going to be super easy for you to implement on a more preventative basis. So we're hoping that you will be able to prevent a lot of challenging behaviors or interactions with your students with some of these strategies. So I think that's the goal. Ultimately, at the end, we'll spend a big chunk of our time together really focusing on you being the emotional barometer in the classroom, and how can you have more control over that, so that you can make the best decisions in the moment for your students.
Yeah, it's so easy as we kind of navigate this, and I felt like this before, I'm sure you have, in all aspects of my life, where I get looked upon as the expert, right? Sitting at a table with a bunch of professionals, and I'm the mental health person, and I don't always know all the answers. I know a lot of answers, but everything that we do is trial and error. And so please know that we're going to give you all the permission you need, if you haven't been able to give that to yourself, to just test things out. And that's the way that this is going to work. We will give you lots of strategies that work for most people, most classrooms, most students, most teachers, but it's going to be on you to test it out and then adjust, adapt, get creative. And that hopefully will give you some freedom to not have to do things in one particular way because some experts told you to do that, but because it works for you and you're seeing the results of what you're doing.
Yeah, and then you'll get to use your professional expertise, your art of teaching to adapt these strategies to your classroom and to your students' needs. So we are hoping we'll empower you with the information you need to make those adjustments and to really develop your art of teaching.
It's so easy to feel like something's wrong with us or something's wrong with the students that we're working with or anybody else. And developing this new skill set or solidifying the skill set you already have, because you're probably doing most of these things, we're just going to refine those processes, will give you the opportunity to recognize you're perfectly fine, your students are perfectly fine, you're just in an elevated state, or your students are in an elevated state. And so if you can reduce the activation of that stress response system, you might see a different student sitting in front of you, you might see a different version of yourself if you were to look in the mirror, and that will take less pressure off you, feel less disempowering for both yourself as a teacher and supporting the students that you serve.
And I'm hoping that we'll be able to have some good conversations around what really is the most important thing for our students. I know that as a teacher, a former teacher and an educator, it is really hard sometimes to know what the priority is. We're often faced with lots of competing initiatives and things that we have to do to improve student outcomes and to ensure that our students are making academic progress. We're hoping that we'll be able to create a space where we can all really genuinely discuss how meeting our students' emotional needs is the most important thing in setting them up for academic success. So sometimes when we are in conversations within our districts with our coworkers, our administrators, our district staff, it's hard to really share your experiences and your frustrations with that challenge. So we're hoping that this can be a space where you can really think about that more and balance the need for this and the need to meet your professional expectations.
We've had many conversations about this, about expectations. And sometimes there's this expectation that we do something, we develop a new strategy, or we have this practice, and all the stress is going to go away. Magic is going to happen. That's not always the case. Some students are really tough cookies, and sometimes our stress is really intense. We have a lot of things. You guys are all humans, and you're coming into your school day with your own personal life, and your students are all coming in with their personal life. And so there's a lot of competing demands in a classroom. And so sometimes the best and most realistic expectation is a student that is not AWOLing, or a student that is not destroying your classroom, or you just maintaining for the day. And so we're going to have those conversations, again, just creating a space where we can just be honest, maybe a little raw, very authentic, and very supportive.